I'm Brad Hutchings, the developer of Mmojo Server. I'm going to walk you through the 200 section of the instructions, setting up Windows Subsystem for Linux, WSL, to build Mmojo Server. On the screen, you see the desktop of a Windows 11 Pro virtual machine. It has 10 CPUs, 30 gigs of RAM, and ½ terabyte of disk space available. I'm working within a VM to make a clean video recording for you. I generally work with a WSL instance on Windows 11 Pro as installed on my laptop. Let's launch Google Chrome. I have a profile with bookmarks for this project. Let's launch a terminal. Let's arrange the windows. Let's visit our Mmojo Server repo and jump to the 201 Prepare WSL article. Our windows are positioned so we can easily copy commands from the instructions and paste into the terminal. I'm going to walk you through the commands and results. While this should be a good video reference, you should read through the instructions carefully the first few times you work through them. Let's go. First thing we're going to do is list our current WSL instances. I have a Mmojo Server build instance on here. When you redo one of these things, you're going to want to delete it, create a new one. So we're going to walk through that. You probably won't have one of these the first time you do this. So I'm going to unregister that. I'm going to create a new Mmojo Server build instance. This takes a minute and I'll speed it up in post. We're asked to create a default Unix user account. I like Linux. I use right-click on my mouse to paste, by the way. I like admin123bang as a password. We're going to disable interrupt. This will make it easier to do things inside WSL without getting our outside environment involved. Let's look at our etc. WSL conf. We're going to append some things to it. It asked me for a password here. And let's see what we've got here. That's better. Let's remove the sudo timeout. That becomes a pain in the neck. Jump down here, and I'll paste it right here. Control X, Y, enter to save. Now we're going to power off this WSL instance, and we're back out into PowerShell. We're going to create a directory on D drive for this, so it's not on our startup drive. And then I'm going to move it. Now I'm going to do this really quickly here so you can see one of the problems, which is you get a sharing violation because it's still cleaning that up. So we'll come back in a minute or so and try that command again. I'm going to speed this up in post, by the way. We still have the sharing violation. Try again in another moment. And this time it worked. Now up above in the instructions, it already instructed me to remove an existing taskbar shortcut. So I'm going to do that now. Then I'm going to come down here. Going to come down to the Start menu, and I will paste that. Find Mmojo Server build. I'm going to pin it to the taskbar, and I'll close up the Start window. Let's launch Mmojo Server build. Actually, before we do that, let's exit this window. We will launch Mmojo Server build. I'm going to drag it over to the left, the window, and position it. We are launched and started. Let's make sure that we are password it up for sudo commands. All right, reminder to start from scratch often. You can rebuild this just by starting from new WSL instance. Do that often as you build stuff. It'll keep your environment clean. Prepare Mac OS. So we're going to skip this because we're not preparing Mac OS. Going to create the scripts directory. So this is a directory that contains some useful scripts that we use in our building. Copy this, paste it here, boom, done. We're going to clone the Mmojo Server repo. This clones the repo that you're looking at right here into the WSL, so we have access to all the scripts that we'll use. This will take a moment, and it's done. Let's proceed to set time zone. You don't need to set the time zone on WSL, but let's take a look at what time zone we're in. I'm in America, LA, which is correct. Let's create Mmojo Share. We have this thing called a Mmojo Share. This is a shared place when you have multiple build environments that you would store things that we commonly use between the environments. So for instance, the big things like models themselves, which can be gigabytes in size. Instead of downloading those or creating them for each environment, every time we create the environment, we store them in a central place once we've created ones that we like. So that's what the Mmojo Share is about. You should go create a Mmojo Share on some other computer. I actually host the Mmojo Share on my Windows 11 Pro computer as a share on that computer, which I then access from the WSL instance or other computers I build on, like a Raspberry Pi or a Ubuntu on a small Intel appliance. Let's move on to mount the Mmojo Share. So this is pretty easy. What we have to do is install Samba client software. Then we're going to edit the Mmojo Share mount script. Come down here to edit. The host is called 17 because it is a 17-inch Dell laptop. The user is Hyper-V for historical reasons. And the share is called Mmojo. Control X, Control Y, Control X, Y, Enter. And we're done editing that. I'm going to mount the share. It tries two ways to mount things. It will mount with CIFS. If that's not available, it'll try to mount with DRVFS, which works better with WSL, with the share on the host computer. So I have both those covered for you. And we list what's on the share, and those are things that I recognize as being on that share. Install dependencies. I'm going to speed this up in post because it takes several minutes. And what we're doing here, by the way, is updating existing packages. Then we'll install packages that we need. Then we'll install a whole bunch of Python stuff that we need. And then we're going to reinstall Node because that becomes an issue later on when we try to build the web UI for Llama CPP. We're now at the stage where we're reinstalling Node, so it'll rebuild the websites correctly for Llama CPP. So if you were building Llama CPP from scratch on your own and other pieces to go with it, you would probably spend half a day to a day just working on getting the dependencies right. The Mmojo Server repo saves you a lot of that work that I've already done once, documented, put into scripts, made it just work. And we'll move on to scripts. This page is just a description of the scripts that are installed that you can use. This needs to be updated at some point. I'll take care of that soon. And so we are done with the 200 section. Recording time on this at this point is 34.5 minutes. I will probably condense that down to 7 or 8 minutes in the final video with things sped up. Just so you know how long it takes. Running through this first time probably take you about an hour. Hope that helps. I'm Brad Hutchings.